What's going on, guys? I'm Tommy and I'm coming at you with an action figure review. Today I'm going to be reviewing Hasbro The Black Series Cav Misty Scar Squadron. If you're not familiar with Scar Squadron, they've appeared in a couple different official comic book runs back in, I think, the mid-2010s, that sounds about right. Basically in the Inner Rim where the Clone Wars was getting cancelled. These guys were the Imperial version of the Bad Batch, which at the time was an unfinished story arc for the Clone Wars Season 7. Each member of Scar Squadron, very similarly to the Bad Batch, is a trooper with a unique quirk or specialty that makes them effective in battle as a team. A few years ago now, we got two of the members of Scar Squadron. You can see one of them on the front of the box here, that being Sergeant Creel, and then we also got Scar Trooper Mike. And then they went a few years without releasing any more members of Scar Squadron, and myself and many other collectors kind of threw in the towel on asking for the team to be completed. We kind of just assumed it was never going to happen, and then out of nowhere, recently Hasbro did reveal a 2-pack giving us 2 more of the members. On the front of the packaging, you can see both of the members that are in this pack, one of them being Cav, which is to the left of Sergeant Creel, and then Misty to the right. Flanking those two are 2 Scar Squadron members who have not yet been made. On the left, I believe his name is Zook, and then on the far right, I believe his name is Arrow. This pack gives me a lot of hope that we will get the team completed at some point. The other exciting thing about this release is that it seems to be a return to Hasbro's publishing subline. The publishing subline focuses a lot more on comic books and novels, giving them special packaging and making them a retailer exclusive, in this case to Hasbro Pulse. Speaking of Hasbro Pulse, I did pick this up on a pre-order through that website, as it was the exclusive place that you could get this set here in the United States. This set comes in the standard style of packaging for the publishing subline, and on the front you'll get a really cool artwork, which in this case has the Star Wars logo, which is behind the members of Scar Squadron, and then behind all of that you can see a little bit of a cityscape, and then down below that you can see the character names as well as a couple legalese there. On the sides of the packaging, I love the sides of the packaging for the publishing line because they give you these grayscale little stills from different comic books that these characters showed up in. I absolutely love the attention to detail there. On the back of the box here, you can see we've got some really cool artwork. Again, you've got Sergeant Creel on the front, flanked by Cav and Misty. Great again that we have Sergeant Creel out in the line right now, although this version of him is a little bit of a different look than the action figure that we have, but it's cool to see again here both of the members of that 2-pack. We've got a ton of legalese below that, and of course guys, please don't feed this action figure to your babies. Again, even more legalese at the bottom. On the side, on the, I guess, spine of this book-style packaging, we have the character names in vertical text, as well as some cool artwork of the characters, and the Black Series logo at the bottom. On the bottom of the box, we have even more grayscale comic book stills, and then we have on the top of the box even more grayscale comic book stills, looking amazing. What's really cool about this packaging as well is that it actually does open up like a book. So you do have some Velcro tabs at the top and bottom corners here. You remove those and you swing this door open, and here we have our troopers in the box with a, again, really cool still from one of the comic books they appeared in. And on that you can also see there's a bio for both characters in about 1,000 different languages. This bio reads, "Troopers Misty and Cav serve under Sergeant Creel in Scar Squadron, Special Command Advanced Recon, part of the Elite Task Force 99. The name Task Force 99 also kind of giving the homage to the Bad Batch before the Bad Batch inevitably was made into its own show. And then over here you can see we have the Black Series logo, a big plastic window showing us both of the figures, their character names, and our Hasbro logo down at the bottom. So with the packaging covered, let's get this set opened and we'll check these figures out. Alright guys, here are both of our troopers out of the packaging, and I'm super excited to take a look at these guys a little more closely. I call these guys the G.I. Joe Stormtroopers, mainly because they are just basic Stormtrooper designs at face value, with some extra add-ons and doodads attached to them to show off their specialties in combat. So with that said, I think it's worth mentioning that the base body for both of these troopers is the 2020 Stormtrooper sculpt. So while there are both sculpted pieces and overlays that are are new on each figure, the base sculpt for both of them is something we're very familiar with in the Black Series. We've seen a ton of different releases on the 2020 Stormtrooper body. It's a great base action figure body to go with in the Black Series, so I have absolutely no qualms with them choosing that as the base for both of these figures. Also worth noting, I thought that it was kind of funny that on the cover of the box they call it Cav and Misty, and then everywhere else on the packaging it's called Misty and Cav. Little things like that you really only notice if you're a frequent collector of the Black Series line. Let's cover the accessory spread for both of these figures before we get into them one by one. So as for Misty, of course you're going to get his main weapon, which is this sniper style blaster rifle here. This, to my knowledge, is a brand new sculpt for the Black Series. You can see it's got some really nice light blue paint accents here for the main piece of the blaster. It's got a great big scope on it there. It doesn't look like anything's painted on the front or back of the scope, but it's got a great sculpt and it feels like a very Star Wars blaster. This is done in a gunmetal color sculpt, and there is no other painted or weathering detail on this aside from the light blue accents. Misty also includes one of these little knives or vibro blades, I'm assuming they are. It's got a really nice metallic look to it here. You can see the handle is done in black, and they chose a really nice silver for the blade and the pommel of it as well. I think this is much better than the dull silver plastic that they've been using a lot in the Black Series lately, and I much prefer this very metallic looking piece over those other dull looking accessories. As for Cav, he has a snub-nosed version of an E5 blaster rifle. This is a separatist design that he carries around with him, but you can see, like I said, it's a little bit more of a snubbed look to it, a little less elongated at the barrel there. It's got some nice sculpted detail to it as well. As far as I know, this is the first time that this accessory has shown up in the Black Series. I feel like, though, there might have been one other time we saw this snub-nosed version. Off the top of my head, I can't think of it, so let me know in the comments if I'm right in saying that this is the first time this accessory has been found in the Black Series. However, just like the sniper rifle, it does not have any painted or weathering detail to it. And then, of course, Cav comes with 4 of those identical knives that Misty came with there. These are all done exactly the same, with the black handle and then the pommel and the blade of the knife being done in that nice metallic silver. Alright, moving on to the figures, there's a little bit less new going on with Misty than there is with Cav, so we'll set Cav off to the side and go ahead with Misty here, since we'll probably go through this one a little bit more quickly. One of the main new pieces on Misty is this soft goods poncho with a hood that is actually stitched on very nicely. When it comes to hoods in the Black Series, I'm always worried that they won't hold their shape very well, and especially with a character that has a big bulky helmet, that's a lot of space to fill up in that hood area, so it can be very difficult to get it right. However, the way that they stitched this with the corners of the hood being down on the shoulders here really does a good job of giving off the effect that it's laying naturally on the figure. You can see there is a red stripe that is printed on the top of the hood. This is a nice vibrant red. I really like the shade they chose for this. And other than that, it's just done in a pretty drab brown color. You can see it's got a point down at the center of the back here. It's a little bit wrinkled up because in the box it was all crumpled up and it was all above the waist. I actually had to unravel it and lay it all out once I got it out of the box, but I will say it is done very well. I'm hoping that when you pose this guy up with the blaster that the shoulders don't end up looking goofy. We will cover that more in the articulation portion of the review. And below that we have, as you can see, a much more basic looking Imperial Stormtrooper. At the helmet here, you've got a lot of the detail that we've become familiar with Stormtroopers. With the black brow up here, you can see a lot of the gray accents painted on the sides of the helmet. The lenses are done in that very dark green, which is much more akin to the Rogue One style of Stormtroopers. At the frown here, you can see some gray and some black, and then you can also see the blue tick marks are both sculpted and painted onto the helmet. You can see as well that the chin filters are done in some black and silver, and then on the back of the helmet, you've got more of that gray detail. Awesome that they painted all of this, especially considering that most of his helmet is hidden by the hood. Of course, in true Imperial Stormtrooper fashion as well, all of the white plastic is done in a very glossy finish to give off that very accurate look to the troopers. The carapace of the armor is a loose, malleable plastic overlay here. You can see they did not paint the little black separator between the front and back of the carapace, but all of the undersuit is sculpted in black plastic, and you can see that pieces of it are ribbed as well. You can see that the shoulders are done on that same thinner plastic with an O-ring system, meaning that it is connected into the torso and not glued down to the arms. As for the arms, these are just basic Imperial Stormtrooper arms. They are nice because you do get trigger fingers on both hands, which is great to make these guys ambidextrous. And then once we get down to the midsection here, you can see they did paint some of the buttons on the front of the abdomen piece here all in black, and then you can just see a lot of the basic sculpted detail that goes around to the back of the figure. The belt is a new piece to my knowledge, with the pouches that are on the front in black here. So you have a larger pouch on the right side of the waist and then a thinner pouch on the left side. These are pretty malleable, especially the thinner one here. So when you're bringing the legs up, these shouldn't hinder the articulation much. And then of course they are missing some of the paint detail on the thermal detonator on the back of the belt. But again, this is one of those that I kind of expected not to be painted because it's all hidden by the cloak piece. Aside from that though, from the waist down, it is all just the basic Imperial Stormtrooper. However, you would have noticed this piece kind of loosely falling, and you can actually take it completely off the figure if you wanted to. This little overlay that sits just with friction over about midway through the thigh, it just gives a couple extra pouches. It is accurate to what we see in the comic books for this character, and I like that they include this as a loose overlay rather than sculpting a completely new thigh piece here. I feel like this just adds just a little bit more customizability to these figures. So if you wanted to remove it, maybe give it to a different Stormtrooper and make your own Scar Squadron member or your own special Stormtrooper, you could do that. There's also this little one here on the lower right leg, and you can actually see as well they did sculpt in a sheath for one of the vibro blades, the one that Misty does come with here. And if you did remove the foot from the figure with the boil and pop, you could remove this overlay as well, making him more like a basic Stormtrooper. And then of course down here you get just all the basic sculpted detail with the classic asymmetry of the Imperial Stormtrooper look. And then you can see down here at the boots, they did paint the soles in like an olive green color. So overall, with the cloak off, he does look much closer to a basic Imperial Stormtrooper, but as you can see, we can also slip that cloak on with no problem at all. It actually functions very, very well putting it on and off. You can see we don't lose that nice fit for the hood there. As for the articulation on Misty, like I said, the base body is the Imperial Stormtrooper, so if you own any figures on that Imperial Stormtrooper sculpt, you pretty much know what you're getting into. He does feature a dumbbell jointed neck, so there's one ball joint that goes into the top of the neck, one goes into the head. There's an additional ball joint at the base of the neck. You can see you can get plenty of range out of that, so you can get some really nice down, some decent up as well. You can get some good tilt side to side and some right and some left. You can see at the shoulders we do have some butterfly joints built into the torso. Those have some really, really nice forward and back, and you can also see we have a hinge and swivel there at the shoulders. So with the O-ring system, the shoulder armor moves itself out of the way nicely, and you can actually bring that shoulder up past the 90-degree mark, which is great. And of course we can get a full 360-degree swivel out of the shoulders as well. I will caution you guys, if you're bringing the shoulders up more than 180 degrees, try to keep the O-ring system with the arm as you swivel it around, just to avoid warping the plastic. At the shoulders here, we have a single jointed hinge and swivel, so you can see you can get well past that 90-degree bend at the hinge, and you can also see we have some nice swivel at the top of the elbow there. Then at the wrists, we have some hinge and swivels, with a swivel with the vertical hinge at the right wrist, and then at the left wrist, we have a horizontal hinge. At the midsection here, we do have a ball joint that goes about halfway through, and you can see that we do have some very nice range out of that. The overlay for the carapace moves itself out of the way very nicely. Then down at the hips, we have some ball joints. You can see you can get plenty of range out of that. You can see that if I bring the legs forward and out, the overlays move themselves out of the way very nicely, bending so that you don't actually lose any range of motion of the articulation there. They did cleverly hide a cut for a thigh swivel underneath the thigh armor, so that's another piece of added range there. At the knees, we have a single hinge and swivel with about little more than 90 degrees, so that's pretty nice. And we do have a swivel at the top of the knee there too. And then of course at the ankles, we have our Hasbro classic, the forward facing pin for rocker, with a hinge which gets you some nice forward and some nice back as well. So overall, the 2020 Stormtrooper sculpt is a great basic sculpt for a figure in the Black Series, and I think it definitely still holds up today despite being 6 years old. And I do want to show off real quick the soft goods poncho. So if you bring both the arms out, it can get a little bit difficult to have the soft goods sit so the hood fits nicely. But the nice thing about soft goods, in my opinion, is that it's very free form, so you can really play with it to get that natural look for the figure and still get the nice articulation without hindering it by the sculpted plastic look. We'll set Misty off to the side for now, and then we will move on to Cav. Now, I was actually particularly excited about Cav just because he's very visually striking, and he has a lot of visual difference to a regular Imperial Stormtrooper. As for the helmet though, Cav just has the standard Imperial Stormtrooper helmet here, so you have again the black brow with all of the gray accents painted on. He's got this extra little black X that is painted, and it looks like that dot matrix style printing done over mostly the left visor, and you can also see it above the brow there. there. And then of course we have the sculpted and painted blue tick marks again, the frown done in that same gray and black, and the chin filters done in black and silver, and then the detail on the back of the helmet in that same gray color. So in that way, both of these figures are identical. Where Cav does differ though is most notably in the left arm. But before we get into that, we do actually have a new overlay on the chest as well. So this carapace is a completely different shape than the standard Imperial Stormtrooper. You can see they did also sculpt in 3 sheaths for some knives there, which is great. That is all painted in black. And then he does have some form of a jetpack apparatus too. So that's really nice to see. That is done in more of a gunmetal color, which matches more closely to the bionic arm he has. As for that bionic arm, he does have a completely different shape for the shoulder armor here, which is done in that same O-ring system as the right arm. So I will say the right arm is just your standard Imperial Stormtrooper arm again, just like Misty had. And then the left arm here, look at all that exposed circuitry here. I love how good that looks, especially underneath the shoulder. I wasn't expecting much. I was expecting it to be pretty plain, but I think they did a really nice job getting all that unique geometry and machinery into that look. I especially love the forearm with the red and the very light blue accents. I think it matches Misty's sniper rifle very nicely and also matches the aesthetic of the Scar Squadron look. I especially love the hand too. You can see all the individual joints of the fingers moving separately here. Really reminds me a little bit of Iron Man, the way that it's all shaped. I'm a big fan of the way that this looks, and you can even see if you bend the elbow hinge, they did include little bits of sculpt for some gear work in there. I really like the way that this turned out. And then as for the rest of the figure, we return back to the Imperial Stormtrooper look. So at the abdomen here, we do have all those black buttons painted in just like Misty had. You can see they did not include the paint again for the thermal detonator. However, this is a little bit different of a belt overlay than Misty has. You can see he's got different black pouches on both sides of his waist, and those are painted in black over the white sculpt. And then at the legs here, we've just got some more basic detail here with the Imperial Stormtrooper look. Once again, we do have an overlay, this time on the right thigh. He does have a sheath for another knife there, which is cool, and that just has the basic sculpted detail, no paint added to that overlay either. And then once again, just the basic asymmetry of the legs, and you can also see they did paint his soles of his boots in that same olive green color. So overall, these guys do still really hold true to the Imperial Stormtrooper aesthetic, with little bits and pieces that make them the individuals that they are. As for the articulation, I'm not going to bother showing you any of the articulation that's the same as Misty. That would feel a little redundant to me, but I am going to show you how the articulation affects all of the newly sculpted parts. So at the left shoulder here, we do have that same butterfly joint system, and you can see that gives you the same amount of range that Misty had. We do have that hinge and swivel at the shoulder as well. You can see that the shoulder, you can get it to about 90 degrees, not quite as high as the standard Imperial Stormtrooper hinge does, but it being a newly sculpted piece and with this big bulky shoulder armor, 90 degrees is pretty much basic for the Black Series. And then of course we can still get that 360 degree swivel. We do have a single jointed hinge at the elbow, which gets you a little past that 90 degree mark, probably a little less range than the standard Imperial Stormtrooper arm there. We'll compare that right and left, but it does also have a swivel at the top of the elbow. And at the wrist for this bionic arm, we have a hinge and swivel with that horizontal hinge look, which has great range in and out. As for the ball joint at the midsection, you can see that that overlay at the chest with the sheaths that hang down do not affect that at all. That's great to see. And then of course at the hips too, we do have the ability to bring the legs up just as much as a regular Imperial Stormtrooper. You can see the overlay for the belt doing its job, moving itself out of the way. So overall, like I said, no need to bother with covering any of the other articulation bits of this figure because it is identical in every other way to the articulation style for Misty. But overall, great articulation on both figures, and I'm really excited to get these guys posed up. All right, so as for Misty here, I don't know how Misty's gonna hold this knife because these are the hands for the Stormtrooper that are made for the blasters. However, looking at this in the right hand, it is a very secure grip and it does pass the shake test. That's awesome. As for the left hand, it is a little bit of a looser grip, so you're not gonna get a very good hold on that knife there, but we do of course have that sheath. So I would assume that the serrated edge, the blade side, faces forward, and I would be correct in thinking holding that so that he can actually grab it. I'm really excited to get this posed up in a couple different action poses. Like, this just, again, G.I. Joe Stormtroopers to me. It's a fun concept, and this sheath does pass the shake test. As for Misty's blaster rifle, we do have the ability to fit that in the right hand. It's got a pretty secure grip there. The trigger finger fits into the trigger guard very nicely, and that also passes the shake test. And then, of course, with Misty, it's also very easy to get a two-handed blaster holding pose here, and for the most part, these soft goods do a good job of laying very naturally with this blaster in that two-handed pose. Again, though, I'll be more interested to see how this plays out with the figure in some more dynamic looking poses. As for Cav here, he obviously can hold the knives in the left hand, as that's probably what this left hand was sculpted for, holding those knives. So you can see he can hold that in the left hand with no problem at all. You get a pretty good angled grip for it, passes the shake test, and also this being a knife holding hand, it's also made for a nice reverse grip on the knife as well, which looks good. We do have our sheath at the thigh here for Cav, which you can kind of put the knife in either way. I'm going to have the handle facing this way so that it makes sense when he goes to grab it. And I should mention, with all four knives being sculpted identically to one another, there is no specific knife that goes into the leg holster versus the ones that go in the chest sheaths there. And these fit really nicely here. I thought they would look kind of stupid, but I think they fit the silhouette of the character very nicely. And again, all of them do pass the shake test. And then, of course, we have Cav's blaster here, which fits in the right hand decently here. You can see the grip is a little bit difficult to get the hand around, but it obviously still is a secure grip, and it passes the shake test. Here's just a cool basic pose for both of the figures here. So far, the poncho seems to still pose pretty nicely, bringing the character into a two-handed pose, and I think Cav just has a very natural aura to him. And here are some more action-packed poses for both of these characters. I will say, for the most part, and I probably could have even done this a little bit better had I fiddled with the figure more, the soft goods poncho does a great job of still holding its shape with those more dynamic looking poses. And again, Cav, just a very naturally toyetic design, so it's very fun to get him in those more athletic looking poses. And here are two really nice one-legged running poses for both the characters charging into battle. Like I just said, they're very toyetic designs, so these are super fun to pose around, and I love just the very concept of Scar Squadron. And here are all four of the current members of Scar Squadron, with obviously Scar Trooper Mike on the left and Sergeant Creel on the right. These guys are going to make for a fantastic team that I hope the Black Series continues to flesh out, because all these guys just look amazing together. Overall, guys, I love this action figure set here. I love any kind of trooper in the Black Series format, and I love that this is helping to flesh out an existing team, which a lot of collectors have just given up hope on being completed. This is such a fun set. I'm really excited to be adding these to the shelf, and I really hope that we continue to flesh out and one day complete the team in the Black Series line. But with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did and you're not yet subscribed, subscribe to Blitz Transmissions. I've got awesome Star Wars content coming out all the time. If you're an ARC Trooper in my Patreon, you would have seen this review early. If you'd like access to early content, monthly giveaways, and other awesome benefits, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. Become an ARC Trooper for just $4.99 a month. If you're a fan of the reviews I do here on YouTube, or you just want to support the YouTube channel more directly, you could also check out my YouTube channel membership, Rancor Battalion. For just 99 cents a month, it gives you access to exclusive badges, priority replies in my comment section, you get to vote on what I review next for the channel, just like the Patreon members do, and you get to check out all my reviews early here on YouTube. If you'd like some Blitz Transmissions swag, you could always head over to the Blitz Transmissions Armory over on Printify. Link to that is in the description below, as well as links to my Discord and all my social media. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll catch you for the next one, and may the Force be with you.
Breaking off. All units, fire at will. Want to pick a target. Too many, Captain. Want your stabilizer, Gold 6. Anybody, cover me. I got two vultures on my tail. You've got to hold them here. Watch your left. I can't shake them. I'm hit. I'm hit. Where's our reinforcements?